Boom, here we go. It is Monday. I am Matt. This is Why Libertarian. Got another week of some awesome guests and shows coming at you Monday through Thursday. Usually at 7. We're a little late tonight to accommodate our guest, and I'll invite him in a couple seconds here. But later this week, tomorrow, I got Jarvie coming back on to discuss Peak D the second time around. We're going to talk about how you can essentially customize your filter so you're not dealing with a company's algorithm on the Hive blockchain looking at social media content. So that should be awesome. I got Top Lobster coming on Wednesday. We're going to be talking about building culture specifically through design and the stuff that he's working on with his brand, but also, you know, all the other stuff that's happening in the Liberty world to kind of advance the cause, so to speak. And then Thursday, I got another natural rights talk with Josiah Hinkle from the American National Rights Foundation. I always screw that up. ANRF. And so we'll be talking some more natural rights. As usual, make sure to follow, upvote me on the blockchain. I am live streaming to Odyssey and Vim TV right now. So if you are watching on the blockchain, please send an upvote my way. That will help. And as usual, like, comment, subscribe, share, notification bell, retweet, and I take live questions and comments. So if you have live questions and comments specifically for my guest this evening, you will be in the mix. And we already got a couple of people chomping at the bit here. We got Shinkin yelling poggers, and we got Ofer saying rock me like a hurricane. So who is it? Who do we got tonight? I am lucky enough to be joined by the one and only Drew Hancock. How's it going, Drew?
It's going pretty good. I am happy to be on, Matt.
Yeah, I got to tell you, first and foremost, before we even get into it, you're one of the most laid back people. But what's funny is online, you're one of the biggest shit posters. So it's I don't know how to navigate kind of that dichotomy. Have you ever had have you always had that kind of devilish streak in you?
No. So whenever I first started, I was very serious and uptight. And I look back at the kinds of tweets I was making whenever I first kind of came on the scene, and they're just awful. They're I would have problems where I would hit the character limit, and every tweet why can't I just write a short tweet? Everything's got to hit the character limit. Yeah. And I've kind of overcorrected to where now my Twitter is me talking about bear jokes and British people and just a bunch of stupid shit.
The best is, so on the thumbnail for the video, I had to put it on there. The tweet about being thankful that you're not waking up British. Where did the British thing even come from?
Oh God, yeah, there was some British dude who was tweeting about COVID stuff, and was "You Americans, you just care about your freedom." And I quote tweeted him with something along the lines of, "If you had more freedom, your teeth wouldn't be fucked up." And like everything just kind of cascaded from there. Like that night I went on a British rant, and like it just kind of went from there. That's how all the things started. Like the bear thing, that just started with me saying like, if you're gonna hike in bear country, bring like an AR-15 or something. And everyone just replied with, "You can't kill a bear with an AR-15." So it just happens like that.
What's funny is there's so much like low hanging fruit, right? Because first of all, within the libertarian population, it's just autism 24/7. So it's like, it's really easy. You just kind of, and I'm not talking about like clinical autism. I'm talking about like, it's your, damn it. It's your, all that stuff. But no, it's really easy to kind of like get people going. And I think, you are one of the budding greats, I would say, as far as shit posting on Twitter right now. I think the efficiency works in your favor, really. It leaves a lot to be left to interpretation, which is good. So before we start talking about what I want to talk about tonight, I wanted to talk about something that you and I also kind of like harp on or talk about pretty importantly, and it's basically education. And I think both I went through public education. I think you went through public education as well. Just in general, like what was your relationship with education? Like, was there any aspect of it that you found productive, or was it mostly, kind of a waste of time?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, I mean, I was into autism as a psyop. I was not very happy in school. So like elementary school and stuff, I was fine. I would say around like middle school, I started to really like it. By the time I was in high school, I just stopped caring about school altogether.
Yeah.
My favorite thing in school was having time to read. Like if I was like done with my work and the teacher was like, "Oh, just read your book," like that was my favorite time in school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a kid where like in my government class, like I would ace every test and stuff, but I finished the class with like a C because I never did any of the homework or anything. So like that's the kind of student I was. But yeah, I hated school. So
yeah. Was there any subject? I mean, like you talk about in your former videos, like you kind of like grew up, or maybe didn't grow up watching it, but like Stossel and things like that were a big part of you becoming a libertarian, or at least introducing you to it. Was that around the time that you were going or entering into high school? Like, were you watching those things and then just seeing stuff around you and being like, this is all bullshit?
yeah, so like all the essays I would write in like history class and English and stuff were about that. So like in history, my research paper was on American imperialism.
Yeah.
And my sophomore year in English, I wrote one about why teachers shouldn't have tenure. That one did really bad. Like, I don't know if the teacher was biased or not, but that's like the lowest grade I've ever gotten on anything.
Yeah.
My junior year, I wrote why we should have open borders, which whole other rabbit hole we probably don't need to go into.
Yeah.
And year, I didn't have to write any essays, so that was probably my favorite year.
Yeah. I can tell you that I was very much like this, try to like just stay within the lines kind of person in high school. And it wasn't until I got older where I reached, the kind of fuck it point that a lot of us are at right now. So you're ahead of the curve on that one. And I think you also kind of had a little bit of that in your family too, right? Like you came from a libertarian-esque family.
Yeah, my dad's a libertarian, so like he'll watch this and stuff. So I just shouted him out. He's probably like waving at the camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a libertarian. He introduced me to Ron Paul. He didn't introduce me to Ron Paul, but he was a Ron Paul supporter and would watch Ron Paul in the debates. So I'd be a kid like walking by the TV and I would kind of pick up stuff. So like the first thing I remember picking up was Ron Paul saying, "Well, what if China was building bases here?" And I don't know why, but that always sticks out to me because I remember that. And it's like, even as a 10-year-old, like, yeah, that makes sense. What if China made bases here? We probably wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't even know what he was referring to, but I was just like, hypothetically, yeah, that would kind of suck. I will say on the school thing that I got a scholarship to get like free community college. So I did that for a little bit because I was like, might as well. And I will say there, I really liked math classes. Like for whatever reason, like the math that I took there was really cool. But I do come from kind of a libertarian background. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I like to watch your stuff because of that, because so many other people come from not that, right? Like they come from a very, one-sided background one way or the other for the most part. And I can, like, I'm always asking myself, like, all right, where is this person coming from? Like, is this their, like, former self kind of, like, peeking through? Or is this something that they've actually kind of, like, evolved into? And there's always kind of, like, that filter or litmus test I'm applying to people. With you, it seems like you're very much just kind of, like, I wouldn't want to say dispassionately, but you're extremely analytical, I think, in the way that you're kind of going about these things. I'm like, do you feel that way, or do you feel like riled up when you look at some of this stuff?
Yeah, I don't get like angry very much. Like I've been called by family members like the most laid back person they ever know and stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, and I will also just throw out, so I don't just like believe everything that my dad believes. Like we have a lot of disagreements, and he's more
sure.
like conservative leaning. He's not an ACAP or anything like that. So I'm not just like parroting what my parents say or anything like that. So I want to make that clear.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't get like riled up or super emotional. There are some issues where I get kind of riled up. So like the school thing in that video, I was dropping F-bombs left and right. I was really riled up for that one.
Yeah.
The police, that really gets me kind of, but for the most part, yeah, I'm more laid back and I just try to look at things. And I think that's why I'm kind of a good shit poster, because I don't get very emotional about stuff and I can like make fun of myself. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's I think that is a really important thing. It's like you almost don't even care if you win any points, like in the fight. It's just like just to get the other person like steamed up, I think is like the best part of it. But so let me ask you about education. I did a episode on why I think centralized education is dead. It's just a zombie corpse walking around the planet, and we kind of hold on to it for nostalgia's sake. Do you think that there's any value there? Like when I say that, most people say, "Oh, well, poor kids would need somewhere to go for education, but for like rich white kids in suburbia, obviously they could go to homeschool or whatever." Do you think there's value still left there in the public education system?
So do you mean like centralized education in general, or like specifically public government funded education?
Well, specifically government-funded education.
Okay, no, yeah, everything could be done by the market. Like, yeah, that's right down the middle. That's a fastball down the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was education before we started having mandatory public schools in America. Like the literacy rate was even higher, and you read like Moby Dick or something. Like, it's not like no one could read before public education was a thing. Yeah, and I mean, if the answer is does the government, or if the question is does the government have to do this, my answer is pretty much always going to be no.
Yeah.
So, but I think centralized school, like people sitting in classrooms and stuff like that, I don't think that's the only way. I don't think that's right for everyone. But I mean, certainly, like there's got to be kids where that is the environment where they thrive the most. I think more so, like there's been research it's better for girls than boys, but I'm like there are certainly students where that's better. Then the whole thing is just that we should provide a choice rather than forcing everyone to go into this one system.
Oh yeah, no, and in those environments, I think boys we fuck it up for the girls because we're always the one that can't sit still and we're yelling and doing all kinds of other stuff, and we draw all the attention, and the girls are like ready, like they're just all business, right? Like they just want to get things done, and we end up kind of like slowing stuff up for them. But we had talked about unschooling a little bit beforehand as part of like the mix. Do you think that's like what do you think your preferred format of education would have been? Like, homeschool with just kind of like being able to chase whatever you were interested in, or do you think that there was something else that maybe might have appealed to you better?
Yeah, so that's something that I think if you're a parent, you kind of have to tell for your child. I would have preferred unschooling because I look at like the videos and all the stuff I'm doing with that. I look like all the videos and stuff that I'm doing like that. Like I taught myself everything. No one said, "Hey, Drew, you should learn how to edit videos." Like, "Hey, Drew, you should learn how to do this." That was just me on my own doing it. And like, yeah, I'm learning like Photoshop and stuff. Like no one's teaching me to do that. Everything that I do with like my work and stuff, like I have guidance, but for the most part, it's me like figuring out how to do stuff. But yes, I mean, I think that I could have done well in unschooling. I think that I didn't really get anything from school. Like I said, I enjoyed like silent reading time when it was just me reading books and stuff.
Yeah.
But there's also, I mean, I'm certain that there are kids where like all they want to do is play Minecraft all day or like Fortnite or something. And I know that a lot of the unschoolers will say like, well, that's good because they learn blah, 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 blah. But I mean, if you're a parent, you probably don't want to see that. And I kind of get that. But I mean, even just like awful stuff, like I learned about like analytics and like statistics and stuff from betting on sports games and trying to like model the right picks and stuff. Like, if you're interested in that stuff, like there's all sorts of math that you can learn if you want to be a degenerate.
Yeah.
And let me just clarify that I am not 21, so gambling is just a joke. I have never done it.
Yeah. I just full disclosure. You hear that, kids? Don't gamble until you're of age.
Don't gamble until you are of age.
Well, that's the nature of it, right? Like necessity is the reason why we learn more often than not, right? And the necessity could be the authoritarian telling you that if you don't learn it, you're going to get a bad grade and have a shitty life, or hell in religious school, you're going to get hit or some other kind of punishment, right? Like those things are what drives you, but we always discount like the ingenuity and the curiosity of kids, and I think it's absolutely awful, because I think that there are tons of kids out there that could essentially teach themselves like amazing stuff, and we just don't let them because that's not the what the system wants, Yeah.
And I think that there's another thing to be said about like in school, they teach you like this bunch of general information. And then whenever you get into high school and college, they kind of like let you specialize a bit more. But still, like I had to take like a music class whenever I was in community college. Like, why do I need a music class? I can just go home and listen to music. But I think that there is something to be said where like maybe if instead of teaching this kid algebra and like history and the stuff he doesn't care about, let him like find what he does like and just specialize in that. Like there's no, like I'll grant you like, okay, yeah, you need to know how to read. You need to know like how to write a little bit. But yeah, if someone doesn't want to learn something, like, no, I don't want to learn the quadratic equation. Like, why should they have to learn that? What use is that? And if it is going to be of use to them, like let them learn it on their own.
Yeah. No, there's an extreme fear, I think, on the part of parents, or at least they've been propagandized themselves to think that their kids need to learn all of these things. And truthfully, like, who cares if you don't know how to make change until you're like, 12, right? The majority of the time you're not going out there running a business. But you know what? A great learning opportunity is running a freaking business. And we don't let kids do that nearly as often as we should either. Fixing horses and stuff like that, I'm sure, is a great way to learn math.
I mean, even if you're just working as like a cashier or something like that could be a way to learn math. But yeah. I think I said in my school video that, yeah, I would have been better off as a 14-year-old getting a job than going to high school. Like, and I totally stand by that.
Yeah. So before we go further, where can people find your stuff, just so it doesn't get buried at the end of the video?
So my Twitter is @LockoutDays, just my name, Drew Hancock. Same thing with YouTube. That's just Drew Hancock. Odyssey, I'm @LockoutDays, and it's just under Drew Hancock. And Odyssey is odyssee.com.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't want to like delve too far into it, but we had a comment from my buddy Dan from Blue Star saying, you look like the love child between that Malice conceived at a Stain show in 2000. He's joking about you being kind of like simpatico, at least online, with Mike. How did that kind of like? How did that come about? I mean, like he seems to be a big proponent of yours.
Yeah, so he's cool. I don't know where he got that Malice is like a Stain fan from. Like Malice doesn't seem like the type to go to a Stain concert.
I don't think so.
I don't get that at all from. But yeah, so the whole reason that I kind of took off like right away as soon as I started was that Dave Smith saw one of my videos, and he brought it up on one of his podcasts that he did with Malice, one of their like joint podcasts, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, there's this video about blue pill libertarians. You should check it out." And I was in Malice's Locals, and Dave couldn't remember what it was, but in Malice's Locals, I was like, "Hey, this is a video," and Michael said thanks, and he tweeted it out and stuff, and I replied to him and was like, "Thanks, Michael." And he followed me from there, and I guess he like watches my stuff because yeah, he's tweeted about me since then, and like he said my name on Tim Pool and stuff, which was kind of nuts.
Were you disappointed that Tim didn't pick you up on that one?
No.
No. I think he would have you cutting. What is he doing now? He's got some channel where he's cutting. This is us going to the range with a professional shooting coach, and I'm shooting a gun that you can't afford. Like, He's doing those videos now.
On a Tim Pool, you know what? I like Tim Pool. I watch his stuff, love his podcast. That's all I'm gonna say about Tim Pool.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. No, I don't. I like Tim Pool for real. I'm not. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. He's got balls. He seems kind of authentic, right? In terms of what he's putting out there. So I can't fault him. I mean, like, and the dude's not like just one of these people that sits behind the camera. I mean, he was covering, Occupy, and that's really where he hit the radar. So all credit to him. But no, I thought it was interesting that Malice volunteered you almost for that position with Tim, or at least put in a job recommendation. But so you ended up really quickly, you're working at Odyssey right now, right? I
do. I work for the video platform Odyssey, which I was syncing my channel and stuff before I worked for them. So like, I do really like them. That's not just me being a shill for them. Like, I am a shill for them, but I do really like them. So I want to make that clear. But yeah, I've been syncing my videos since the start, since like December, and I got hired from them about a month and a half ago. So yeah. Awesome.
And you're helping them do some marketing and things like that in the present day, right?
Yeah. So I like I do. I try to get people to like hey, come on Odyssey and stuff like that, and I do like their social media and stuff. Some of it, yeah.
Awesome. No, I would definitely advocate any creators that are out there, content creators, get on Odyssey, get on the blockchain platforms, because at the very least, it's an insurance policy. I had Jeremy Kaufman on 2 weeks ago, and he spoke about it really sparingly. But no, the blockchain is anywhere that is censorship resistant. We are coming into a time period where if this trend continues, the censorship is going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And so that's something to remember. And I'm glad that you're taking the steps to, kind of like have that plan B. Before we get into the main topic here, the last question is Malice's book is #1 in nonfiction right now. And I think it's #2 or #3 on the chart in terms of total sales. Like, what do you take of that?
Hang on one second.
Go for it. Oh! Tell me you got like a special.
Everyone buy this book. It's fantastic. It's called The Anarchist Handbook by Michael Malice, and there's his picture on the back.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but it looks cool. So I got mine in the mail yesterday.
Okay.
That's
he's got like a special deal where I don't know if he has it out yet, but like the people on the inside are going to get like a signed, personalized hardcover or something like that. So I think you should angle for that. I think you're the
I
inside
would very
guy.
Much like a signed hardcover copy. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll be fighting some people for that. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on a book that has the word anarchist on it being at the top of the book sales charts right now?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, Malice, he's kind of weird because he's like super radical, but he has a lot of outside appeal than just like libertarian. Like, he doesn't call himself a libertarian, but he has a lot of appeal outside of this space. So like, you'll see him go on like the Anthony Cumia show, and like Anthony's like a big conservative and into like cops and stuff, and they'll just talk about abolishing the entire government. Or he's got like the Bridget Fetisi type. So Malice, I mean, he has wide appeal. He is, I don't know, he is a world-renowned author. He's the #1 anarchist. I mean, there also might be, so there's, I think, essays in here from like Bakunin and, Pruden and stuff. So, I mean, there is like left-wing appeal too. So I think that may be part of it. There were people saying on Twitter and replying to him, like, maybe they are getting it mixed up with the cookbook. And there could be something funky like that going on, but I don't think so. I just think, he's a famous guy with a lot of appeal. Yeah.
My brother chiming in says it seems to fall just short of a cookbook.
There you go.
Yeah, it's pretty far afield from a cookbook. I have not read it yet, but my understanding is the same as yours. It is a wide-ranging collection of these kind of like philosophical essays that have been written by these people that come to anarchism or at anarchism from a bunch of different angles. And so I think he and Dave Smith coined it the ultimate white pill, right? this idea that it's not all of us against each other; it's all of us against the government, effectively. So no, I'm excited to see where it goes. I really hope it continues to stay up there, and it's not just this kind of like one-time shot. I hope that this continues to kind of like reverberate. So now to that point, libertarians, right? Like the Libertarian Party. I think you went to one, maybe two state conventions or party meetings, right?
Just one, my own in Missouri. Yep.
To Missouri. What was your experience with that?
Yes, I mean, for the most part, it was a good time. I got to meet some cool people. Josh Smith was there. He's a pretty cool guy. I was like the tallest person in the whole place, which I found out a bunch of people on Twitter, for whatever reason, thought I was like really short.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was all about.
But I don't think they ever see you standing up. It's just like your shoulders and your head, pretty much.
Yeah, like there was a theory that I don't have legs and stuff, like Madison Cawthorn or something. But yeah, I mean, it was cool for the most part. It was kind of boring in the early part. Then the speakers came, and it was more entertaining then. But there were some shenanigans that happened, which I don't know. Should I talk about that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It happens in an open forum, so I think it's more than fair game.
Yeah, so I mean, so there was this dude at the very start, so I kind of sat down and some people filled in, and it just so happened, so there's 4 people at a table, and the 3 other people at my table just happened to all be Mecox, or in the Mises Caucus, and this dude who was one of the executives or whatever, he had just walks over and is like, "Hey, I'm a so-and-so, and I don't think you guys should be on the committee, and I'm happy that you're here, but yeah, if you try to go on the committee, I'll object." And he walked around to like every Mises Caucus table and did that, and it's just because we were in the Mises Caucus.
Yep.
And later on, then of course it came committee time, and all the Mises Caucus people are trying to be on the committee, and they all got on the committee. And he threw a fit and was like, "The committee is for blah, blah, blah. These people they're going to try to spend all of our money and run this party into the ground," as if like the Libertarian Party of Missouri is like this powerhouse organization that we're going to come
flush with cash.
Yeah. And there was someone in the comment section being like, "That didn't happen. Like, this is on video. You can watch it." Robin Dominic uploaded the whole convention, so you can see it. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't really care. They lost. Like the dude trying to block us lost. Like everyone in the Mises Caucus made it on. So it is what it is. Josh Smith gave a really good speech, and I got to meet a couple of people who I've talked to online and like nowhere else. So that was cool.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, besides the Mises Caucus takeover shenanigans, I thought it was a pretty good time.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that inspired me to ask you to come on was some of your kind of like immediate, I guess, response or kind of like thought process following that. Did the politics, hit you as good, bad? Like, what was your kind of like feeling walking away from that event?
So walking away, I was like, "Yeah, we got to take over this party, yada yada yada." I was like, "Okay, yeah, next year we're gonna really do this." The thing is, before that convention, I was kind of skeptical about the Libertarian Party entirely. So I was kind of like, I don't really think that politics is the right thing for me. And then that whole thing really like drew me back in for a little bit, where I was like, okay, yeah. And I think I even say in my video, like, even if this doesn't matter, like, I want to take this over just to spite that guy. Which now that that's kind of worn off, I'm kind of back. I'm really kind of just back where I was before, where I'm like, yeah, I don't think politics is really the right thing for me. Yeah. But yeah, like the LP, like I don't have any respect for like the leadership in the LP who want to block like new members and stuff. Like there's lots of good people in the LP, but if you're going to do that, like that kind of stuff, then I mean, go fly a kite. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, we can talk more about the LP stuff and my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so obviously some of the types within the LP have been stars in a couple of your videos, namely the blue-pilled libertarian videos. But from that standpoint, like, do you think it's too much like a traditional political party, or do you think that was just inevitable, and it's not even that, it's just, the people and kind of like their aspirations at the top that are the issue?
So it's too much like a traditional party in one sense, which is that they want it to be like a traditional party. So these people, like, they're nobodies, like they've never done anything, like the Missouri LP, like I've said, like, what have they done?
Yeah.
But they want to act like, hey, we're this prestigious organization, even though they're not. And that's why they don't want new people who are like passionate and stuff, like on the committee making decisions. So I think there's that part of it. I mean, there's also like the whole like Robert's rules and like all this fancy stuff. I don't know. This is all like regulations and stuff, but I think it's all like super autistic. Like, why can't we just go to the convention and, just have a fun time and like coordinate events and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Which, like I said, there's probably like regulations and stuff like that I'm just not aware of. But whether it's the result of regulations or that's just how the party is set up, like, it doesn't really matter to me because that's the way it is. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the big thing. And I talk about that in my videos. Like, it's these people who just want to feel important and they use the Libertarian Party to do that. I think, I'm not going to say who said this, but I mean, people have said that it's a way for very mediocre people to feel important. And I think that's pretty true.
Well, that's politics in general, right? It's a beauty pageant for ugly people, right? Like, that's exactly what it is, So what do you think the path forward is? Right, like, or let me ask you this: in terms of like you being, you don't have to necessarily be the prognosticator of what the future looks like, but for you personally, what sits better with you? Do you think it makes more sense to take the political route and try and kind of like jockey for power and stuff like that, or do you have a different path that you think you can kind of make an impact?
So I mean, I won't speak for everyone because I think that everyone, like, do your own thing, do whatever you think is best. Like the Mises Caucus, I fully support them. I think they're doing great stuff. Like, I'm still going to donate to the Mises PAC and stuff. Like, good for them. I just don't want to personally be involved. And I don't think that we all need to pursue like the same strategy. Like, I don't think there's any reason for that. So I'm just going to keep doing what I do. Just keep making videos. Like, I have a video coming out probably Wednesday about the drug war. I mean, there's that. I mean, I think I do more working for Odyssey, even though Odyssey isn't like a political platform. Like we don't take political stances, but I think I do more for Liberty working on a decentralized platform like that than I would in the Libertarian Party. So, I mean, yeah, but everyone just do your own thing. Like, there's no reason. I don't think that I don't want to be like an asshole like Sal the Agorist and talk about like the Mises Caucus people, like they're a bunch of dummies and they're wasting everyone's time and buy Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't think that like everyone needs to be in the Libertarian Party or everyone needs to be in the Republican Party or anything like that. Like, just do whatever you want. Like, as long as you think you're doing something, I mean, go for it. Nothing's worked. Let's try stuff out.
Yeah. No, look, regardless of what direction you take on it, getting the message in front of a lot of people, I think the biggest problem that we face is just a lack of understanding of what liberty is, right? Like, I think going back to the education conversation, from basically our birth, we are propagandized to believe that, these strong centralized institutions of control are the best, the best thing since sliced bread, right? Like, they are what makes the country great. And I think there's a vast minority of us that understand that that's exactly the opposite. It's actually the individuals within this country that make things great, right? Like that, or make great things, so to speak. So from that standpoint, I'm like, have you ever thought about that? Like the idea of culture versus politics or some other aspect of things, in terms of whatever it is, building community or building a brand and stuff like that, that does more to kind of affect people's thought process or their viewpoint, as opposed to this kind of like, trying to build this behemoth, political structure in order to fight back, so to speak.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, I mean, getting into the culture, like, that's a big thing. So like, look at someone like Rage Against the Machine. Like, they're just a really popular band, and you know what? They just happen to also be communists, and they spread communism. Like, if there is something like that, like if Backwards just went completely mainstream and they're this ANCAP band, like that would be awesome. There's Top Lobster, who you are going to have on Wednesday. He does awesome like shirts and hats and pants, and I don't know if he does pants, but all sorts of like Liberty merchandise. Stuff like that's awesome. If you walking in the store and you see someone wearing a "Ask Me Why Taxation is Theft" shirt, like I haven't done that, but maybe that could be useful, and you have some good conversations. Just shit posting on Twitter, like there's all sorts of stuff. You turn into Dave Rubin and you see this weird dude dressed up like the Question. I don't even know what that is, and then you find out he's Michael Malice and he's an anarchist. What's anarchy?
Yeah.
I think that there's certainly something to be said for that. And I think that like these LP types, the worst types, this isn't really Mises Caucus types. These are the types in the LP that I don't like, who act like, oh, well, we're in the Libertarian Party. What are you doing? And they say this to like people who are doing a lot. Like there's an old Twitter exchange that I remember where Andy Craig, everyone's favorite Andy Craig, said something to Michael Malice. This was whenever Dear Reader was his only book. And he said something to Michael Malice like, oh, yeah, because writing books about North Korea, that's really going to set us free. It's like, who the fuck are you to make fun of Michael Malice for writing a book about North Korea? What the fuck have you done? Wrote articles for Cato that no one reads? Like,
yeah.
And volunteered for your LP? Oh, yeah, I don't even know what state he's from. But yeah, Andy Craig, he's a powerhouse of a figure in there, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people, you're right, have that mindset where it's like, oh, well, I tried and I had like a marginal impact, but like, it was the hardest thing I ever did. You have no chance of doing anything better than I was able to accomplish. So like, you should just like, bow down to me and honor what I did because I've done this amazing thing. And you're like, yeah, but we haven't won anything, right? Like,
yeah. And I mean, it's like they're completely oblivious. Like Malice completely changed the whole conversation on North Korea. Like he was the North Korea guy. Like when a talk show was going to talk about North Korea, they would invite Michael Malice on. It's like, who are you people? Why are you so like stuck up and like pompous whenever you've done nothing? Like,
I think this is the other thing that people don't get. It's a long game, right? Like it's not a short game. So like the progressivism that we see, kind of like all the chips being cashed in right now. The phrase is it happened gradually and then all at once, right? It's kind of endemic of the way that Americans think, right? Like Americans see, the pro football play, like they see freaking, Kansas City win the Super Bowl and they're like, oh, well, I could throw that ball like Mahomes did. Like, give me a couple of weeks, I can do it. And you're like, no, you don't understand what went into this. This kid spent literally like 15 years of his life getting up at 5 a.m. in order to like weight train and study and all this other stuff. Like, no, you can't, right? And so I think a lot of people suffer from that very short timeline view where they're like, oh, in one election cycle, we can just fix things, right? Like we have, we throw some Rothbard quotes at them and magically everything is going to be fixed. It's not. You have to build that culture, and you have to essentially kind of like fight back against generations now of programming. I would imagine you follow Eric DeJuly because you mentioned backwards. This idea of like NPCs. Do you see that? Like, do you agree that these people are just kind of like vessels that like every so often they get, kind of propaganda downloaded and that's essentially what ends up coming out of their mouth?
Yes. And I called someone an NPC on Twitter the other day.
Yeah.
I spelled out non-player character so I wouldn't get banned, but yeah.
Is that a thing now? Like if you call someone legit like NPC, they will ding you on Twitter?
I know that they were banning people for having like the NPC as their profile picture, so I don't know. I'm just being safe. I'm really careful about that stuff. Yeah, it's something where like I used to work at a bank before I worked for Odyssey, where I work now, and you would notice that these people where you help, they would all say like the exact same things. Like we had a joke where if someone came in the drive-thru up to the window where there's like the drawer where you reach out and you can like physically put your check there or whatever. Yeah. Every time like a woman would come up and she would like kind of have to climb out of her car a bit, every single time they would say, I have short arms, or my arms are way too short, or blah, blah, blah. It's like every single person you help, and I worked there for a year and a half, and every single like woman says, my arms are too short. And you're just like, man, all these people are kind of the same. And like people make the same jokes and stuff like that. And I mean, thinking they're being clever. And then you look at Twitter and you see these people talking about how like Rand Paul has never helped anyone. Rand Paul has a very poor track record of helping people, and it's like he's a doctor.
Yeah.
Like, but you say things and you just see like the same response over and over again, and it's like these people, they aren't like, they're just repeating like program lines. Like that's what it seems like, and that's why the NPC thing is completely awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and to that point, I know the answer to this, but I want you to be able to say it because I think you get this quite often, as do most of the other people that are, for lack of a better word, they don't bullshit around, right? Like they don't like just hold back and like try and say something like eloquently and elegantly, and they will be in your face and firm about it. Why do you feel like you need to be assertive with these things as opposed to try and like, placate people or like string them along to get them to where you want them to go?
Yeah, if you try to do that, you're not gonna appeal to those people you're trying to placate, and you're gonna alienate the people who you are trying to reach. So there are people where if they see Ron Paul say on national TV like, "Hey, legalize heroin," like that really gets to them. And if you see like a Gary Johnson type, like, well, I think marijuana maybe, like, that's going to alienate like the people who you are trying to reach. And you look at someone like Justin Amash, like I like Justin, but you read like his replies whenever he says anything outside of the mainstream, and all of his like left-wing followers he has just ratio him and are like, Justin, you're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, wow, good thing you appealed and played safe to get all these people who hate you anytime you actually fight for something important. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that's the main thing. You want to try to get the people who will actually be receptive to a radical message, right? Rather than trying to get these people who are never going to get it, because then you get nothing.
Yeah. Shikit actually brought up, we were talking about Sal. I agree. I don't think he's necessarily like trying to be specifically an asshole, right? Like in line with this, I think he has a very specific direction that he's going in. And like you're talking about right now, like he wants to talk to those people that I think that he can reach by, being extremely pointed, I would say. The question I'll ask you isn't about Sal, but it is about Justin Amash. I've kind of noticed this, but maybe it's just me being a little more Pollyanna-ish about it. But Justin seems like he's not the same guy now that he's out of office. Like, do you get that sense of it? It seems like he used to walk on eggshells a lot more when he was an elected representative. He's kind of like breaking out of it a little bit, or do you think I'm just kind of like reading into it?
Yeah, I think he still does walk on eggshells. Like if you watch him on You're Welcome, like he was still kind of walking on eggshells, kind of tiptoeing around stuff. But I think, yeah, he's gotten a lot better since he left Congress. And I mean, he's been awesome on the vaccine passports and stuff. That was the big thing, the Israel-Palestine thing. But yeah, he's been a lot better since he left. So I would say so. But he's still Justin Amash. He's not Dave Smith. Yeah.
So. Frankie chiming in, she's saying libertarians won't get anywhere if they're too afraid to be radical in their messaging. I would agree. Have you listened to Shane Hazel at all?
I know who Shane is, and I follow him on Twitter, but I have not listened to him. No.
It's pretty good. He's got a ton of podcast episodes out there. I don't know how much Liberty content you consume, but he's got a ton of stuff out there. Shane is a self-professed crayon eater. He was in the Marines, so he is like he fashions himself after the grunt that just kind of like knows viscerally what's good, what's bad. And to his credit, like the thing, he is savantish in knowing the Constitution, the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, as well as the predecessor to the Constitution, and so. But he talks in a way that is very average person-ish, and I think that's his appeal. The Libertarian Party, or at least the people that you're talking about, specifically the blue pill types, as well as the establishment types that maybe they're not necessarily blue pilled, but they're very much about like the pomp and circumstance and all this other shit. They don't like him because he is, he is Trumpian in a way, right? Like, he doesn't beat around the bush. He doesn't try and be eloquent or anything like that. When Joe Biden posts something, like, his response is "fuck you." Like, it's not like, well, actually, the Constitution. He's like, no, he has that in his repertoire, but truthfully, like, his response is more visceral than that. But Shane is very much of that, and the reason why I thought about it was his show is actually called Radical. So that is something like, what content do you listen to? Like, do you? I mean, you mentioned Josh. Like, are you listening to Josh Smith regularly? Who else are you kind of like keeping tabs with?
I don't listen to anyone regularly, so I don't really have the
Okay.
time for it. I used to listen to Dave Smith every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because I would get right off work whenever he started streaming on Gas Digital. So that I used to listen to every single show for like probably almost a year. But yeah, so there's Dave, there's Malice, Josh Smith, Reed Coverdale. I don't know. Let me. I don't know. There's not really anyone that I watch all that regularly. There's probably someone who I'm like forgetting that they're like yelling at the screen right now. But yeah, there's no one who I really watch. Like, I got to catch every podcast I do. Oh, Pete Quinones, there's one. Liberty Lockdown, that's who I was forgetting.
Oh yeah, Clint. Right?
Clint, yeah.
Yeah. Clint's good. Clint's got like a swagger to him. Like I think that's his draw. He's not afraid to go head to head. I mean, I think he was calling someone else out earlier today, like, come on my show and like let's kind of like hash it out. I think he's got like this just he's got a big set of balls on him.
He called Seth Rogen a bitch, and I was like, come on my show and debate me, bitch. Like,
which he's not wrong on.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just look at what he did to who was his buddy that he basically freaking canceled, the dude who was in Pineapple Express.
I have not seen that movie.
Yeah, no, I can't remember, but like the two of them, they did the North Korea film.
James Franco?
Yeah, Franco. He ditched Franco in an instant. There was no brotherhood or respect or loyalty or anything like that. The moment something came up about Franco, he shit all over him. Like, he was persona non grata to him too. But no, I think that's the world that we live in now. It's like so many of these people that are these focal kind of people, like any kind of like sniff of any kind of like impropriety, and the rest of them just gang up on each other and just like shit all over them, and it's just one of those things where it's like, have you, like, I mean, you face a lot of backlash as far as that goes. Is that something that concerns you, like getting doxxed or people trying to like freaking like do some of this crazy shit that they're doing now in terms of cancel culture?
No. So I mean, like, they're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna find out where you work. You work for Jeremy Kauffman. Yeah, I'm gonna tell Jeremy Kauffman that you're a radical ANCAP, and we'll see if you lose your job. Like,
you're in the right place for your boss to be like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah. Whenever I worked at the bank, I did kind of worry about that, and I did kind of keep it under wraps, like what I was up to in my downtime and stuff. Like, I wasn't going to tell anyone, like my dad or anyone, about it until there was the podcast where Dave was talking about one of my videos, and it's like, okay, I have to tell my dad about this, that he's talking about me. But yeah, and like originally I didn't use my face, I didn't use my real name, and that just kind of came along, and I think that was ultimately good for my brand, and just because I think people would rather know like who they're listening to and it not just be like a cartoon character or anything like that. But yeah, I'm not really worried about getting doxxed or anything like that now.
Yeah. I think you took the steps that a lot of people either feel like they can't or they feel like they're afraid to, right? Like, you found a job that fits with the culture that you want to be, involved in. Which I think a lot of people I think a lot of people are also a lot more afraid of what will happen than what is actual reality. Like, I don't think there are tons of people that are all of a sudden going to get fired, especially because everyone's on unemployment now and no one wants to fucking work.
There you go. And there's been a lot of Twitter arguments about that.
How about that shit? Like, is that something that you've seen play out?
Like the labor shortage stuff?
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
I
like
haven't.
I would assume, like, do you have like youngish friends? Like, I mean, you're like early 20s, right? Like, do you have young friends that are, collecting unemployment, or maybe on the other side of it, where they're bitter, they're like, man, I wish I got fired so that I could sit at home and collect unemployment.
I don't. So like, yeah, I have a friend who works at like a grocery store. I have another one who works for like a flower shop. So like, I don't know if maybe just because I live in Missouri, like everyone is just more like rural Missouri, not rural, but smaller town Missouri. Like maybe
Mm,
everyone here was just raised to be hardworking. But yeah, that's not really anything that I know about.
yeah.
I know that there are places like there are signs up where they say like, "Hey, we're hiring," and they've had "we're hiring" signs up for a very long time now. But yeah, with my friends and stuff, I don't really know about them. Maybe I just keep good friends and
I,
don't really have to worry about that.
I'll make that assumption. That's good. What about I? Let me ask you about something that Georgia put into their Libertarian Party platform, that a lot of people have talked about, is secession, right? Like, um, where are you at on that idea? I mean, like, is that something that you think is a viable, at least tool, or do you have a different opinion on it?
Yeah, so I think secession is awesome. One of my first videos was about secession. If California wants to secede and be socialist, like I'm all on board. I was all on board with like the Chaz thing. If Texas wants to secede and be, Texas, like go for it. If the Confederacy wants to come back, I mean, go for it, Confederacy. Like, uh, but yeah, I'm all for secession. I hope every state secedes, and then after every state secedes, I hope that every town secedes. I love secession, so all for Georgia LP. Good for them.
Yeah. How about this idea? I one of my first videos I did on, I thought we were thinking about secession the wrong way. I don't think it's the states that have to secede. I think we have to emancipate the cities. Just like
Yeah.
build a fucking wall around the cities and let them do whatever they want to do, and then all of the rest of the states can pretty much exist on their own. Do you think that's feasible?
I mean, yeah, I'd be up for it. So yeah, people were saying that in response to my secession video. Well, what if like, uh, California secedes, or I don't know. What if Missouri secedes and Kansas City and St. Louis? Well, they don't want to be conservative. They're big liberal cities. It's like,
Yeah.
well, they should secede too. Kansas City and St. Louis, leave Missouri. Like
Yeah.
that just means we need more secession.
Yeah, we that needs to be a Top Lobster shirt. We need
Yeah,
more secession.
there you go.
I offer saying he's been referring to that as eviction. Um, and then my brother referring to, I don't know if have you seen Judge Dredd?
I have not. I know what it is though.
Yeah, I no the premise behind Judge Dredd, pretty much the entire series, whether it's the movies or the graphic novels, was because of pollution and stuff like that. Everyone moves into these gigantic cities, and that's what causes the increase in crime and poverty and all this other stuff, which which we were kind of at before COVID. Let me ask you, like kind of the last topic here, living in Missouri, what has COVID been like for you? I mean, like, has it been just as kind of, I live in New Jersey, so this is a socialist republic. I mean, we essentially went on lockdown day one, and it's been a fight just to be able to go outside. Was it similar for you, or how did things play out in Missouri?
Yeah, so I'm sure in Kansas City and St. Louis it was a lot different, especially like St. Louis. But here it really wasn't much of a thing until probably July, actually. And then July at my job, they made me start wearing masks, and then the town had a mask mandate. The fucking mayor passed like an indefinite mask mandate, which,
Huh.
you know, vote him out.
Yeah.
But and then it started to kind of be like, okay, that's when I really got upset with it. Prior to that, it was like, yeah, COVID, not even a thing. No one has to worry about it. Um, and then now we're kind of back to, and for the past few weeks now, it's just back to normal. Like no one cares about any of the COVID stuff. All the mask mandates are lifted. Like no one's social distancing or anything. Like you can look at the this isn't Missouri, but at the PGA tournament yesterday, it's just a back to normal bunch of people crowded up together, like huddled around Phil Mickelson. Like awesome. Like we are done with all this crap.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I can't throw it up on the screen. I have a couple of comments from someone who's watching on Vim, and so Trey was basically saying, echoing the idea that the progressive agenda has been growing for the last 20 years. And I think we've seen it play out in terms of what's happened within the last kind of like 12, 15 months. Do you think they overplayed their hand?
I mean, certainly. So people get kind of like blackpilled on this, and they're like, "Well, Twitter, they're censoring and blah blah blah." It's like we have all these avenues for communication now. Like, it's better, it's easier now than it was 100 years ago, or whenever they completely controlled. Like, all you have are the 4 channels and their news stations, and that's pretty much it. There's a lot more avenues for communication now. So, I mean, people are losing faith in kind of like the whole media apparatus and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I would say that I don't think it's just been the past 20 years. Like, the progressive agenda, like, they've been around for 100 plus years now. It's just that now, yeah, with the advent of social media, people are more aware of it. But before, like Walter Cronkite and stuff like that, like, they were pushing the same stuff. It's just that boomer cons and the like, they kind of have a warped perception of the reality. But yeah, it's always been the way it is now. It's but they are grasping a bit for like to maintain their power, because yeah, they're completely losing it.
Yeah. No, it definitely seems like it definitely seems like they're cashing in their chips. Like, that's because and Dave Smith actually mentioned it. He was like, when you go through a contested race like happened between Trump and Biden, so hotly contested, he was like, usually there's a little give back after, like, whoever wins takes over, like, they give back a little bit, and it just seems like they hit the accelerator. Which is funny, because then Biden turns around, he hits the accelerator on certain things, which is basically the neocon playbook, right? Like, this is like what would have happened if Hillary Clinton had won 4 years before, you know. But so the all the rest of the stuff, like all of the squishy stuff that Biden ran on, like, none of it's gotten done, right? Like, let's see. Justice reform, fucking nothing, right? We had one guy who got found guilty of, 3 murder charges in Minnesota, and so, like, he gets thrown to the mob, and it's like, okay, whatever, we did our duty, and you're like, okay, well, were you gonna change anything? And he's like, nah, we don't have to. We got that guy, so we took care of it. Marijuana, right? Like, marijuana is still scheduled on the federal level. He promised all of these giveaways in terms of, like, student loan forgiveness and whatnot. That didn't come to pass. But I'll tell you what he has done. He's made sure to continue to bomb brown people in other countries. He's made sure that, large corporations are basically being taken care of. So it's like, it's just more of the same, but it seems like a ridiculously larger amount of more of the same. So much so that I think I saw some Democrats recently be like, well, I don't know, the $4 trillion that you're borrowing seems like a bit much.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, like, the Republicans and the Democrats, they pretend to be different on, like, the culture war and stuff. And I mean, yeah, there are, like, issues here and there where they're different. But I mean, for the most part, at the end of the day, they're all fascists. Yeah. And I talk in my next video about the drug war. Like, don't let Democrats fool you into thinking they're great on the drug war or civil liberties. Like, they're the party of corporations. They're going to do whatever public pressure says to do. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So everyone's saying Joe Biden is a communist. Like, you were completely wrong. He's not a communist. And everyone's saying, like, Joe Biden, actually, no, yeah. He's not a communist. He's a fascist. So progressives who thought he was going to be great, he wasn't. And I don't even know if there were progressives who liked Joe Biden. They just thought he wasn't Trump. They thought, well, he'll be better than Trump. And, they were wrong. But yeah, so he was worse than the progressives thought and better than the conservatives thought, I guess, in a certain way. But yeah. Yeah.
This is like 2 elections in a row. We got to choose between giant douche and turd sandwich was basically
exactly
what it was. So you have a video dropping on your YouTube channel. Everyone check out Lockout Days on YouTube. Look up Drew Hancock on Twitter at Lockout Days for some really good shit posting. If you're British, don't check it out because you'll just get pissed off. Any other cultural groups that you want to target?
I don't even know where to get started. If I say this, will probably get banned.
So that being said, definitely follow Drew. Check out his stuff. He's on Odyssey, so if you're watching on Odyssey, hop over to Lockout Days and look up Drew Hancock and upvote his stuff so that he can, get some help with the algorithm over there, as well as get some crypto and some library credits. So that's pretty much it. Look, I want to say thank you, Drew. I appreciate it. We'll have to do this again sometime. Really kind of like nerd out on education, because the possibilities are there. It's just we're dealing with infrastructure and entrenched, basically organizations that have no impetus to change, when truthfully it's essentially just screwing over our kids. So, and you're closely removed from it. So I think that you have a really good voice to be able to voice that as someone who has kind of just come through it and said, look, I could have done so much better elsewhere, or at least had a better time of my education than I had, in this kind of like gulag that we send most of our kids to, because it is quite literally a freaking prison. But look, what else do you have that you're working on? You have one video dropping. Anything else in the works?
No, that's pretty much it. So every now and then I just release like a shitpost video. I'll probably do one of those. I have some ideas, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I might start a podcast where I don't talk about libertarianism, and that's kind of the joke of it. I've thrown that idea out, but yeah, so far just the videos. Follow me on Twitter and that.
What's the podcast topic going to be?
Haven't decided. Like literally, where I talk about everything except libertarianism.
Yeah, Kansas City Chiefs football.
Exactly. I'll talk about Mahomes for an hour every week,
and whether you should buy the hook.
Exactly.
but you have a birthday before you can do that.
Yep.
So, well, yeah, everyone check out Drew's stuff. Thank you very much. I will be back tomorrow night with Jarvie. We'll be talking some decentralization and the Hive blockchain, and good stuff. So thank you very much, Drew. Everyone have a very good evening.